I grew up in former Czechoslovakia, where in mid-70s my dad became the first moderator of the radio show. He created the first radio talk show in the former communist country. I remember those days sitting in a control room watching, listening to his shows. And during one of his visits in 2011 here in Vancouver, I asked him to be on my radio show. I did an interview with him. I was never that nervous before and probably after. I think that I created the shakiest interview ever. And since then, many other interesting guests have entered the Via Mia door. Most significantly, after I traded microphone for camera. And one of them is here with me today.
Sponsored by the following people:
recording studio, rehearsal space, voiceovers, video, filming and editing in New Westminster. For more information, fiascobro.com. Cuts and colors in uptown New Westminster. We welcome our stylist George of Salon Caliente. For appointment, call 604-544-5104. Security and alarm systems since 1972. For more information, call 604-251-2121. Makeup services for television, film, and photo shoots. For more information, visit www.victoriawan.com.
Almost a year ago, if you remember, the radio legend Red Robinson agreed to be interviewed by me on this show. And today, I would like to welcome another radio and TV personality, the morning show host of CIL 650 Radio, Sterling FAUX.
Hi,
Hello,
Mia.
Sterling. You have no idea how proud I am of myself achieving these kind of goals, having people like you here. And you know, I don't know if you noticed at the beginning what I was saying, interviewing my dad who works in this kind of field.
Well, I did hear that part, and I'm most anxious not to be the second shakiest interview
I just want to say that, why am I back again?
Well, after Red, I'm going to be a piece of cake. And,
okay.
And he recommended you to me, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you very much, Red. So now we're going to give you the space to speak. You, like I said, you are the host of the morning shows of the radio that finally got back the name that it should.
That's
right.
That's right.
I'm really happy to hear it. Instead of, you used to be AM 650, now you're back to CIL.
We're back to where we began.
Yeah.
Back in the early 80s, we came on air originally as CIL.
Yeah.
And over the years, stayed with that brand mostly, and then about the last 5 years or so, for some mysterious reason, somebody's head office consultant decided we needed a name change and went to the very generic AM 650. And of course, if you're on the radio and these changes occur, you do what you're asked to do, and you make the changes. But I and several of my colleagues in the building are really thrilled that our new owners, New Cap Radio from Halifax, have decided to return us to being CIL as we always have wanted to be.
I think that's how it should be. That belongs to that station.
That's right.
You know what I like about, I'm sure everybody's familiar with the station. I listen to it every day. That's my favorite station. That's why I really wanted you to be here, because it's so different. The music we listen to on that station, we don't hear anywhere else.
That's true.
And that's really true. The repetition of the songs is not there. So you don't have to hear one song every 5 minutes.
Well, it's very different from a pop station where they do want you to hear the same song about every 90 minutes. And we, fortunately, the songs we play are all pop songs, but they're the pop hits of yesteryear. So
exactly.
You can't play them too often.
So we don't hear usually songs on 50s, 60s, 70s, and that's 80s. So we have it all there. Mm-hmm. Your shows on the stations are very interesting. And when I said a morning show host, okay, you do weekday shows 6 to 9.
That's right.
We're gonna go to other sphere where Sterling is working, because it's not the only show what you do. I would like to ask, starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, to be cheerful, talking to thousands of people, to be ready and witty, that requires a lot of discipline to be in that kind of attitude that early in the morning.
It does. You're absolutely right, especially if you're not particularly a morning person. I function best late at night. I love to stay up late at night, and I do my best work after everybody else has gone to bed. So for me to do morning radio, which I've done in Vancouver for a lot of years, it requires discipline, it requires training, it requires adjusting your whole life to a different set of rules.
Well, like I'm saying, is if you're 6 o'clock just driving or in the office, I'm not saying that you can't be alert there, but you're speaking to people, you're entering their lives, and you can be yawning there and sitting there saying how tired you are.
Well, that's absolutely true. And morning, you know, and year after year of surveys continues to show it, that mornings are the time of day at which people listen to the radio the most. Because in many cases you set your clock radio and you wake up to the radio involuntarily. You're listening even before you have a chance to turn it off. And so radio is most popular in the morning. So when you work on the radio in the morning, you're aware of the fact that there's a lot of folks out there listening and kind of counting on you to get them up and get them going. So knowing that makes doing the work a little easier because they are counting on you.
Yes.
So, okay, you're just ready for them every day.
Well, you have to get up very early morning.
I do, yes.
What happens if you sleep in?
I never have, but I'm
not trying to.
Well, no, looking for that moment that I'm sure is going to happen. But so far, I've been really lucky. I get up at 4. I leave the house just after 5. I'm at the radio station by 5:30, and that gives me a half hour in the building to get everything ready for a 6 o'clock start. And I need every minute of that half hour at work.
So you can't afford to be pulled over, get a ticket,
no,
and
all these
things.
No, because I'll be in a really bad mood if that happens. So I behave myself on my way to work.
Well, I'm sure they would have to find something for a few minutes if that happens. You're a human being.
Oh, yes, yes. And I have been known to lead-foot it on occasion. But no, in the mornings, again, you establish a routine. And I find that the more you repeat that routine in your own life, the easier it is to be a person people can count on in their lives.
Yes.
So it's important to me to keep that routine
and
behave as a driver.
I really I admire that, because that's a little too early to be so upbeat and make sense at the same time.
Well, it is. It's a challenge, but as I say, I've been doing it for a lot of years, and after a while, it gets easier. It's never as easy as some people would think, but it becomes easier over the years.
Yeah. Well, if we go back, because I know I read your synopsis, and if I'm correct, you've been in radio for 45 years?
Yes.
45 years, wow. But it didn't start here in Vancouver.
No, I'm an Ontario boy.
You're Ontario boy.
And it started when I was in university at Laurentian in Sudbury. And that's where I started working radio and television in one of those smaller Canadian cities. And back in those days, it was quite common for a smaller city to have an AM, FM, TV combined into one operation. And that's what we had in Sudbury. And I started working in television and eventually made my way into radio, because they always looked like they were having more fun.
Where, in TV?
In the radio guys. So the radio guys always, the performers on television always, they certainly were enjoying their work, as you clearly do. But the radio people, the part that I found most attractive was the invisibility of radio. I've done a lot of TV over the years, and I thoroughly enjoy it, but you know, people can see us, Mia. And in radio, they only hear you, and you get to work on the invisibility of the medium. And if you know a little bit about what to do with it, that can be an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, I know, but I think that I did radio shows just for a year or so, but I found it more challenging. You know, if I forget something to tell you, I can make body language or can replace it and stuff, but nothing replaces your voice in the radio.
The other thing that's very different from a performer's perspective is, in television, you're out here hosting the program, and if some technical problem occurs, you may hear about it from these wonderful people you're working with, that we've got a problem, we need you to fill for a couple of minutes while we fix things up. Well, then you get to do that. You get to tread water, so to speak, and give them the time to make that adjustment. On the radio, first of all, they can't see you, and so they don't know there's a problem necessarily, and there's nobody else working with you. You fix the problem yourself while in the process also continuing the performance. So there's a little more responsibility on you as a radio performer to get it done, get it fixed, and get on with things. But in television, if you're the host of the program, you're the last person actually able to do anything other than occupy the airwaves.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're
so
right.
it's very different.
It is different. You know, now when you're telling me, there is a huge difference there.
Yes.
But yeah, you mentioned already that you were also on TV in the 80s, I think.
80s and 90s.
90s.
Yes, I worked with British Columbia Lotteries. Actually, my first television adventure here in Vancouver was back in the 70s. On one of the cable stations, I did an astrology show that was a call-in. It was very, very interesting. And then a few years later, I started working with BC Lotteries and hosted their show for 9 years. And we did it live once a week. And I was Santa Claus every week, and I had the most popular job in British Columbia. I went on television and gave away millions of dollars every Saturday night. So it was huge fun, and we did it live, and there was no margin for error.
Where can we find you now doing it?
Doing lotteries? No, they don't do lotteries on television.
Giving money
anymore.
away.
Oh, giving money away. Geez, that would still be a fun job. It is the best job in the world. Giving money away is the best job in the world. And I did that with lotteries for 9 years, and it was a lot of fun. Since that ended back in 1996, the show ended in 95. I finished with BC Lotteries in 96, and I've been on television a few times since, most recently on the Money and Wealth Show, which was a finance talk show format that ran for a couple of seasons in BC and Alberta. We did 72 episodes in 2010 and 11. And that's the most recent regular TV stuff I've been involved in.
You see, so the radio is not enough for you. Try to challenge yourself. You need to do more, but you return there.
Well, you know, life is a challenge, and you are evidence of that as well, because you're a multi-disciplined performer. You sing, you go on the radio, you're on television, and you're constantly, I would imagine, finding ways to challenge yourself to do more.
Well, yeah, well, that's what life is about, right? Can't just sit on one spot. I just try to reach from any angle I could,
well,
and then
sure.
I think we all should. Please don't go away, Sterling. We have just a very short break, and after that we're going to be back with Sterling FAUX, the morning show host of CISL AM Radio.
The VMEA show is sponsored by the following people.
Recording studio, rehearsal space, voiceovers, video, filming and editing in New Westminster. For more information, fiascobro.com. Cuts and colors in uptown New Westminster. We welcome our stylist, George, of Salon Caliente. For appointment, call 604-544-5104. Security and alarm systems since 1972. For more information, call 604-251-2121. Makeup services for television, film, and photo shoots. For more information, visit www.victoriawan.com.
Well, we are back with Sterling FAUX, another radio personality, TV personality, who is mostly known as a morning show host of CISL 650 radio.
That's it. That's right.
But you know what? The 650 messed me up.
Well,
CISL
you know,
AM.
CISL 650, and of course the other part about rebranding back to CISL is my kids, all of whom are grown up now, but who've been doing it all their lives, they get to say, my dad works at Senile all over again. That's a staff joke. It's 30 years old, and it still goes around our building every week, and we all still laugh.
Oh, yes.
It's fine. It's okay. We get senile. we're good with that.
Well, you know what I learned about that particular radio station from Red? That he said every time he walks in, it's like the real radio stations, not the radio stations they are building these days. Never been there, so it's very difficult for me to.
Oh, we'll have to get you down for an official tour. We share our building with two FM.
Is it Estro or
we have
Forest?
no. The station, the company that used to own us was Astral,
Okay.
and our new owners are from Halifax. They're a company called New Cap. And in our building, we have, besides CISL 650, we have Z95, which is one of our two FM stations, and the other one is LG 104. And so those are familiar names. Z95 is a well-known Vancouver FM station name, and LG was the first radio station I worked for in this city 40 years ago when I finally moved to British Columbia. So again, these are heritage names that the new owners have thought, well, you know, there's a connection with Vancouver radio people to these brands. So let's get them back out there and see what happens. And I think it's a very interesting approach.
You know what? I was waiting for one question to ask because that really, I like that particular part of your life. You were teaching broadcasting.
I was.
In BCIT.
No former students in this group here.
I'm sure you liked it.
I did.
What I want to say, what an honor for those students to get a teacher like you, somebody who works and understands that industry. It's not about theory, it's all the practice and all things. And now I'm thinking maybe it's I don't want to sound negative, but how do you see the perspective of all those students with so many, few jobs in the radio now? How you think that all of them could find the work in the radio?
Well, the radio profession and the broadcasting profession really are a little out of sync with the demand in the workplace for graduates from their programs, but they're not alone, Mia. The teaching profession is equally guilty of generating more graduates on an annual basis than there are jobs in the workplace for. So broadcasting isn't unique in that regard, but you're right. The business has evolved to the point where it is considerably more difficult to get that first job than it was in the past, simply because when I first started eons ago, all of us people started out working on the all-night show, the graveyard shift from midnight until 5 or 6 in the morning, when very few people were listening, so you could make hideous mistakes and not cause the station to lose its license. Well, there aren't any live all-night shows on the radio anywhere anymore. So those opportunities are gone. So for people coming out of broadcasting schools and programs right across Canada, not just here in British Columbia, but yeah, it's very competitive. It's always been competitive. Now it's extremely competitive.
Do you find, for example, internet, do you find as a threat, potential threat to radio?
Internet? Well, there are certainly moments in the radio business when we've felt threatened by the internet, or certainly had lots of meetings to determine whether or not we should feel threatened by the internet. Some of the discussions that have gone on are pretty funny. I would think that radio and the internet are actually quite compatible. We are an AM station in Vancouver. Well, AM stations, and we play music, and AM stations that play music are handicapped because they're mono, and music is usually on a nice big fat FM signal. So we are very encouraging of our listeners to pick up the digital app, to stream our station live on the internet, where the sound quality is outrageous. It's wonderful. Or you can take your cell phone and download our app, and the quality on your cell phone is good too. So are we threatened by the internet? No. We also have satellite realities to deal with, Sirius and XM and Spotify and some of those other satellite delivered services. They've changed radio listening habits, but I don't think they've stopped people from listening to the radio.
No, they didn't stop me, but I don't, especially your station, because
thank you.
I'm a fan of music, but I'm a fan of real music. So, and I really like it, what you broadcast on that station. I haven't mentioned, but I'm sure you've seen everybody on your screens. STIRLINGFAUX.com is Sterling's website, where we can find more information, where I found most of the information about him. I happened to notice the one discussion on LinkedIn recently.
Okay.
It was a discussion among a group of broadcasters throughout North America. And I decided to borrow that topic because I found it very interesting, and especially it says three major mistakes talk show hosts do. And one of them, the first one, was always something I doubted because I just always heard different opinions, and I'd like to know yours.
Okay.
So they said mistake number one is talk show host doesn't have an opinion. And I like to know what you think, because I've heard 50-50 that people hosting their show should remain neutral, but I also heard, no, they should have their opinion.
My opinion is, and I've done talk radio. I've done a lot of talk radio, mostly here in British Columbia, but based in British Columbia across Canada. I do believe that hosts should have an opinion. I also think that the host should provide an environment in which people they clearly disagree with are still comfortable and respected enough to be able to sit down and have an intelligent conversation.
Exactly.
I don't have to agree with everything you say to have you as a guest and perhaps have one of the better conversations we're ever going to have, because we know in advance we don't agree.
I know.
So that's okay. I find the I've got to be fair and balanced at all costs approach sometimes leads to a little blandness on the part of the host. Some hosts can be too opinionated and not give their guests at least breathing room and a chance to express themselves. But I think if you're fair and you have opinions, that's pretty much where you should be.
Yeah, well, I just like, there's quite a few columns I like, but I don't want to read it all, but just the first one, it says, talk radio is the most exciting format on the AM radio dial. It is home to some of the most talented and influential individuals on radio today. This is mainly because the format is all about the host. It's all about you. It's all about your opinion. I joined the discussion. It was tons and tons of people that they agreed, tons of people they didn't at all.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, but again, that's what makes us interesting, people that we are different. We have to have different opinions.
Well, in my radio listening days, I've always, and this is just personal, because of course it is so subjective, but I've always preferred to listen to hosts on the radio who have opinions.
Oh, yeah?
And even if I'm hitting the dashboard of my car going, no, you idiot, you're so wrong, it doesn't matter, because I'm at least, that person has me engaged. I'm yelling, I'm in my car and I'm talking to my radio.
Oh, yes.
That means that person has me where he wants me, or she wants me.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like a host with opinions.
Yeah. Well, they said that now, at least I know your opinion, that we should have opinion. Mistake number two, replacing opinions with questions.
I don't know about that one, Mia, as much as not having an opinion. I suppose that's a device that you would use in order to replace your opinion simply by asking more questions of your guests. And it's certainly a strategy that you see and hear on the radio. I respectfully disagree.
Okay, you disagree. They say that it's about polarizing the issue with your opinion to prompt listeners to call the show and debate you. I think that they meant between caller and the host.
Sometimes, or the callers, and certainly the guest. And in which case, if you're hosting a radio talk show, you usually hog the guest to yourself for the first few minutes to establish some kind of, well, here's what we're here to talk about today, and here's what my guest has to say about this today. And now, okay, we're going to take a break, and after we come back, the phone lines are open and it's your turn. At which point the host relinquishes the lead and simply starts taking calls, and then it's all about the guest and what callers have to say about the guest. And then the host, so you get your shots in up front, and then you step back a little and make room for your callers. That's what the show's all about.
Well, if we have chance to step to the briefly to mistake number 3, and they said mistake number 3, it's stealing the listener's thunder.
Ah,
So
yes.
I don't know if you have that particular person who posted this says the third big mistake talk show hosts make is telling listeners what the caller is going to say before putting them on air. It drives me crazy. It ruins the call.
That's right, exactly. You know, I agree. That one I completely agree with him. Why would you want to put, you know, line number 6 from Vancouver on the air and go, oh, and this person's probably going to say.
Yes.
I mean, why would you do that?
Well,
that's disrespectful to the guest and to the person who's on. Let me say it. I'm the caller here.
Well, the caller, as soon as the call has been taken, becomes co-host.
In a sense, yes.
In a sense, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't do this to a co-host. So why would you do it to a caller?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's an interesting column that you read.
Yeah, it was a lot of stuff, and it wasn't a long time ago. And then I decided to change a lot of things about today's show because I like it, and I thought that it would be nice to hear your opinion because like you said, I like people expressing and not be afraid to express their opinions.
Right, and I've had the great fortune to have worked with people like Jack Webster and Rafe Mayer and Gary Bannerman and other highly opinionated Vancouver personalities on the talk scene over the years, and every moment spent with them was just joyful.
Sterling, I have unfortunately room only for one quick question. If you have to start your career all over again, what differences would you make?
Oh my goodness, that's a really tough question.
And you have only 30
and I have
seconds.
and the time is running out. Wow, what would I do differently? You know, I'm one of those incredibly lucky people who spent the last 45 years doing exactly what I love to do the most every day.
So don't make any differences.
I don't think I'd
No.
change very much at all. I may have
great.
been nicer to a couple of bosses that I crossed over the years, but no, I don't have a lot of regrets. I kind of like the way things have shaken down.
That's great. I'm very, very glad that I met somebody like you, Sterling. Thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
your time being here. Like everybody else, I'm going to let you sign my cup. You can't leave without that.
All right,
Please.
be happy to.
Thank you again. STIRLINGFAUX.com. That will be the website for the morning show host of CIL 650 AM radio. CIL AM radio.
There you go.
I got it. And for the rest of you, I'm going to see you again. I'm sorry.